We are performer, and you might perform the same play every day, but there's no routine here. I mean, we depend on so many components, from the ingredient to the cooks. I mean, there's many things will make you work harder in order to be consistent. Daniel is spiritually French. He was born and raised on a farm near Lyon. That started in '69. The 70s was the beginning of Nouvelle Cuisine in France and sort of the revolution in cooking. And that's maybe what kept me cooking. I will see every morning Alain Chapelle, Paul Bocuse, Trois Gros, and all the Lyonnais from Lacombe and all that. And I could see this fraternity of friends and also the fraternity between suppliers and restaurateurs. When I was in Lyon, we learned through the grapevine, the cooks who worked at Bocuse and all that, oh, our boss is in Japan, is in America. And when I started to learn to cook, a chef I was working with told me, he said, you're choosing a wonderful job because you can choose to live anywhere in the world and you'll always be cooking. I wanted to work for Georges Blanc because he was one of the youngest restaurateurs. He was like 28, 29 at the time, and I was 17. It was very good for me to see the evolution of that and to see the gradual change and to be part of it. For example, the mother was only doing frog legs with garlic and parsley and butter and perfectly seasoned and perfectly crisp. And Georges wanted to do frog legs with a shallot cream and some leaves of sorrels and things like that, much more, and crispy potatoes on it, and so things much more experimental.
And then what was Roger Verger like?
Well, Roger Verger was an artist in a way, but he knew how to be a warrior in this business. Meaning that, for example, he worked in Africa, in opening restaurant in airport. At that time, that was very important locations, and he had a contract. And so he had to learn to do a lot with little. Roger Verger was really the expression also of Provence. I mean, for me, the best memory I have is when you make the soupe de poisson, and you have a basket full of small rockfish like this, live still, with all the different fish and the little crabs and a little cigale de mer and everything, and you heat up the olive oil and the garlic and the fennel, and you throw all the live fish into the pot and start to stir them up and make the soupe de poisson, and that's
the ultimate freshness.
Exactly, and that you can only do it there. And Picasso was living in his village. I mean, there was no small potatoes there.
Did he used to serve Picasso?
Yeah, he used to be at the restaurant very often because he was just on top of the hill, and he used to come down, and instead of paying for his meal, he will give him a painting. Not every dish is a classic. I think we are remembered for very few dishes. Every chef has done thousands of dishes, but if you ask me, Pierre Kaufmann, what do you know about him? I know that he does a beautiful pig's feet. And I think Paul Bocuse, what is the man good at? I think he's good at many things, but there is this soup, Paul Bocuse, which he created with the feuilletage on top, and the riz de veau and the foie gras and the consommé with the truffles. And it's a masterpiece of simplicity and genius. So I went to Roger Verger, and when I say, I would like to go to Trois Gros or Chapelle, he convinced me to go to Denmark. So I stayed about a year and a half at the Plaza Hotel in Copenhagen. Copenhagen was a revelation because every chef would travel out of its boundary, sort of discover new ingredients, discover new taste. I was inspired by Michel Guérard. If Roger Verger was an artist, Michel Guérard was a poet. The early 80s was something happening in America where few of them, very few, were in connection with France, totally in the same level. I stayed 2 years in Washington, and then I felt, and I had the chance to come to New York in between and work in a restaurant here, which was La Côte Basque, which at the time was the big restaurant institution, New York institution. I went to that restaurant, I saw the energy, the clientele, the class, the buzz. I said, God, I've never seen a restaurant like that. And in the kitchen, they were buying produce like porcini. Didn't matter the price, cases to the wall. I was starting to make a little name for myself.
Yes.
And then Sergio Maccioni was looking for a chef at Le Cirque. And Le Cirque was definitely known and had an incredible clientele, but he was not very well known for his cooking. I've learned a lot of things at Le Cirque in organization and how to get organized, much more than maybe I've learned with a restaurant where everything is so... There weren't spontaneity sometimes in those big three-star restaurants. No spontaneity, very rigid. At Le Cirque, you were flying. Sergio was like, oh, I'm sorry. It was 9:30 at night. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. I have 12 friends coming tonight. Can you make me a little menu? And then I learned that the 12 friends, they were, of course, Italian press, French press, chefs, and this and that. So it was not like, I'm cooking for the family. That was my challenge, to impress him. Yes. Not to impress the guest, to impress him. Yes. By saying, you forgot to tell me? I'm going to show you what I can do for you.
Sure. So how long were you at Le Cirque?
6 years.
How do you create a dish?
I always work very seasonally. It's a market-driven menu. So spontaneity, creativity are focused on ingredients, and after that technique and taste. Yes. And presentation come way last. I'm not designing a dish and then figuring it out if I can get the ingredient. Right now we have a morel and crayfish dish where we stuff the morel with the little liver, heart, a little bit of foie gras, and then after we have the quail roasted, the leg stuff of the quail, and we have the fricassee of crayfish. In that dish, I'm trying to remain into a very traditional flavor of morel, crayfish, and the delicacy of quail. Famous artists will not come to the dining room because they don't care about dressing up, so they go directly to the kitchen and sit down in the skybox, which is the chef's table,
yes,
overlooking the whole kitchen.
Yes.
And of course, feeling like they're in a whole little private club up there. And, from dancing to drinking to partying.
There? In the kitchen?
Yeah, in the skybox.